What's going on, you guys? It's your girl Diana back at you with another YouTube video. So for the past 2 weeks I have been cramming, well not cramming, cramming's never good, but I have been studying my butt off for the NMLS SAFE exam. If you don't know what that is, I don't know why you clicked on this video, but if you are interested in the mortgage industry, you should probably figure out what it is. But for those of you that have clicked on this video, probably know what it is. And it's a very daunting test, has about a 60% pass rate on your first try. Like a 50-50 chance that you're gonna pass or fail. That's kind of scary. So when I heard that statistic, I wanted to find out as much as I could about this exam in order to prepare for it, since I was completely new to the mortgage industry and didn't know anything about it. So I looked up a bunch of videos, naturally, and they were not great. The tips were very lackluster, so I figured I would give my tips on how I was able to pass the SAFE exam with a really high score on my first try, having zero industry experience and basically starting from ground zero, knowing nothing about the laws, mortgages, interest, nothing. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up to make sure that this video gets sent out and pushed out into the algorithm and help your girl out so I can get more people to pass this test. And remember to subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of my face. But let's go ahead and get into the tips. So for starters, like I said, this exam has about a 60% pass rate, so the odds aren't great. So why would you even attempt to pass it on your first try, Diana, if it's so hard? Well, it's kind of ideal that you pass on your first try because the NMLS exam actually makes you wait 30 days in between attempts if you do happen to fail the test. And that only works for your first 3 attempts. After your 3rd attempt, you do have to wait 6 months until you take it again. Why is this important? Because you're more likely to forget things the longer you have to wait in between taking the exam. You're always gonna have the most fresh information on your first try, so basically your first try is probably your best bet at passing the test. Not saying you can't pass it on your 2nd or 3rd attempt, but it is most ideal to pass on your first try just because you won't have to wait that 30-day waiting period if you do happen to fail, and the info is going to be freshest and you're not going to get it all jumbled up by Google searching or talking to your friends that probably don't even have the same exam as you, because they do pull from like 10,000 different questions, so nobody gets the same exam. So you can't really ask your friends, what is on your exam? Because their test was probably completely different than yours and they can't really help you in that sense. Moving right along into the tips, as to not drag this video out. So before the test, you're going to want to knock out your 20 hours of required pre-licensing education as fast as possible. This is required all across the board if you are trying to get your license as a mortgage loan originator. You just have to make sure it's an NMLS approved course, and they offer a bunch of different programs. Just pick one that's good for you. Just knock it out as fast as you can, because the 20 hours is just going to be like you dipping your toes in the pool. It's gonna be basically all the information that you need to know condensed into like a textbook, so it's gonna be, you're gonna feel like you're getting like a lot thrown at you. You're gonna feel like you don't know anything. So knock out your 20 hours as fast as possible just to get that out of the way. It is required, so you can't really skip that step, and the faster you get it over with, the more time you have to actually study the way that you want to, and you're not forced to sit through like a classroom type setting and drag it out. Next tip that I have for you is to find a good prep course. So there's a bunch of different prep courses that you can choose from online. Literally just type in SAFE exam prep courses and you'll get like a slew of them popping up on Google. Just make sure that it's a really credible prep course and it's got good reviews. I happened to use Prep Excel. I like Prep Excel over the other ones just because, one, Prep Excel gives you a little study plan that you can like tweak and basically make to your liking. It's got games on there, so it's super engaging, and Prep Excel updates their stuff every time the exam updates, because the exam does constantly update, so you don't really want to use a prep course that is not the most up-to-date, and some of the ones out there can be a little bit out of date since the exam has changed recently. The next tip that I have for you guys is to make sure that you block out time to study. Like, don't do anything else, just study. I blocked out 3 to 6 hours depending on the day, and you're gonna want to make sure that you're in a place where you have time to do this. This exam is basically the start of your career, so think of it as like a job. Studying to pass this exam is basically going to be your job until you do pass the actual exam. So make sure that you're in a place where you do have time to block out at least 3 to 6 hours in order to dedicate that to your studying. These are not easy concepts, so 3 to 6 hours I find is probably best so that you can go over things at your own pace and make sure that you're actively learning everything that's just gotten thrown at you in your 20-hour course. If you do happen to be in a classroom type setting, since I'm sure a lot of prep programs have like instructors online or videos, make sure that you are actively listening. Don't just listen to take notes. Taking notes is amazing. I definitely took notes during my prep course. However, you want to make sure that you're actually listening to all of the examples that your instructor or the videos that the instructors provide are giving you, because if you're just writing down information, you're not going to retain it and you're not going to really understand how it works in real life. And the questions on this test are not about rote memorization, they're about applying the knowledge into real life. So if all you know is a bunch of definitions, it's not really going to help you in situational type questions. So the test does test you on situations, not just like definition based questions like what is XYZ law? Lastly, before you take your test, you want to make sure that you know how you learn. Find out ways that help you retain the information. For me specifically, which is why I really enjoyed my prep course, is I liked playing the games because it would give you like little quizzes where like if you got a question wrong, you would lose, but it would give you the answer that was correct for the question with an explanation, and then you could try to beat your score after that. That's how I learned. I really liked that there was games that kept my brain engaged, and there was also plenty of practice quizzes and like different little like quizzes on like specific concepts to make sure that I was really understanding everything. So I know for myself, I don't really learn by taking notes or by doing flashcards. I kind of learn by keeping my brain engaged and kind of like making it like a video game or like a competition. Just know what helps you retain the information. What works for your friend might not work for you. I know I studied completely different than other people that have taken the exam, so whatever works for you, just make sure you know it. Moving right along. So it's test day. This is what we are going to do on test day in order to set you up for success, because let me tell you, test day I was sweating. Palms were sweaty, knees weak, arms were heavy. I'll just see myself out. Make sure that on test day, you do eat a good breakfast, whether your test is early in the morning or later in the afternoon. Just make sure that you get up with enough time to eat a good breakfast. It's gonna keep your brain sharp and awake, and then your stomach's not gonna be growling in the middle of a test. It is a long test. You do have 3 hours to take it, and it is 120 questions, so very long, very wordy test. So you're gonna wanna eat a good breakfast because you're not getting out of there quickly. Like, there's no way. At least an hour for the speed racers out there. So, morning of, don't try to cram. Cramming is like the worst possible thing that you could do the day of the test, because at that point you know what you know, and if you try to learn anything else, it's honestly going to cause you to forget more things, or it's going to cause you to jumble your concepts together because your brain hasn't really had time to like absorb everything and kind of like make those connections for the concept. So don't cram the night before and don't cram the morning of. You know what you know, just go into the test knowing what you know. You've prepared for this, you've blocked out your time, you've studied, you knew your study habits, you're good. I also recommend pumping yourself up before you head over to the testing center, or if you're taking it at home, whatever setup you got going. I took it at a testing center. So I recommend hyping yourself up, whether if you're driving to a testing center, blasting some music in the car, or if you're at home, you know, like putting on your favorite like hype up like show or movie right before, just something to like relax you and kind of put you in a good mood. Now, once you are in the actual test, you're gonna want to read the question thoroughly. And I say this because when I was taking my practice exams, getting ready for this test, I would get questions wrong because I did not read the question and it had a not or a double negative. So there's a lot of questions that have double negatives that you need to watch out for, which is why I say read the question and make sure that you actually read it thoroughly, because sometimes it's like all of these but this one, you know, like all but which, or all of these are prohibited under XYZ law, except, you know? So you gotta watch out for those questions. You gotta make sure you read them. Also, don't add any information to your questions that's not given to you. Everything that you need to get to the correct answer on the test is going to be given in the question. Sometimes you'll get even more info than you need for like math type questions, since there will be math questions on there. Don't worry, they're not hard. They're literally like addition, subtraction, stuff like that. But don't add anything. Like if they give you like something and you're like, oh, but what if this happens? Or like, what if this happens? And then it would be this instead. And then it gives you the wrong answer because you added things that didn't need to be added to the question. Just take the question at face value and look at your options and pick the one that sounds the most correct. There's only one right answer on the test. There should never be two answers that are correct. There's literally just black and white. That one's right, the rest are wrong. The next thing that's really important is, like I mentioned previously, you do have 3 hours to take this test. That is plenty of time to answer 120 questions. I took about 2 hours because I took my time making sure I was reading those questions as to not screw myself over like I did on my practice exam. Yeah, take your time. If you get stressed out, it's okay to just breathe. I definitely like probably looked crazy. Good thing the testing center had like little blockers, because I was literally like cracking my neck, stretching, like rubbing my eyes because I was staring at a screen. Like, nah, take your time, get comfy. Like this, like I said, this is the start of your career. You want to take it seriously. So if you're starting to get tired because it's a long test or you're staring at a screen for too long, take a little breather. You got 3 hours. You can spare 10 seconds to just rub your eyes, take a little stretch. Do it. Do what you need to do. Don't stress, because if you stress yourself out, you're gonna forget things. That's what stress does to you. It's not your friend. So if you get stressed or you feel overwhelmed, just take a second, collect yourself, don't think about the question, take a deep breath, and then move on. The other most important thing is don't change your answer. Just don't. Because usually when you change your answer, it's wrong. You just got a bunch of like information thrown at you. You don't know the information concretely yet because you're brand new. So go with your gut. Your instinct like knows which answer to lead you to because your brain like recognizes something that it's seen before. So just go with your initial gut feeling. If you think about it for too long and you change it to something because you start contemplating XYZ things and then you change your answer, usually it's wrong because you just confused yourself and convinced yourself that your right answer was wrong when it was the right answer all along. Don't change your answers, just leave it. Your first initial gut feeling is usually correct, especially on a test like this. Also, when in doubt, just use your test taking strategies. Usually you can pick out 1 or 2 answers that you know are definitely wrong. So even if you have no idea what the answer is to a question, just eliminate the 2 that sound like wrong, or even just 1 that's wrong. And then usually there's 2 answers that are pretty similar. Those are usually going to be your top 2 contenders right now. And then if you narrow it down to 2 choices, you got a 50-50 chance at that point of getting it right or wrong. So just go with the one that seems the most right at that point. Test taking strategy is beautiful. Also look for little Easter eggs in your questions. Literally on like some of my practice exams, they would mention a certain word, like a keyword, and that keyword would literally be part of like one of the answers. And I was like, ding, 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 light bulb, that's probably the answer. If I didn't know what the answer was, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm gonna go with the one that seems to fit in this sentence because they have a similar factor over here. So test taking strategies are really key. Narrow down your answers so that way you have a better chance if you are not sure what the answer is of getting it right, if you narrow it down to like 2 answers instead of all 4, and look for little Easter eggs in your questions, because sometimes you do have little Easter eggs that lead you to a correct answer. So those are going to be my top tips for how I was able to pass this exam on my first try with a high score. Basically, key takeaways from this whole video are that you want to make sure that you have enough time to study, that you know how you study. The day of the test, you need to trust your gut, don't stress out, and use your test taking strategies. Let me know if you guys have any other tips that you did and leave them down below in the comments. Help each other out. We'll all start making some coins soon, doing some loans. If you want to see more videos like this in the future or any other videos that you're interested in, leave those down below as well, and I will see you guys next time.